Hey, what's happening? My name is D, and welcome back to another episode of Book Reviews with the Regular Dude. Today, we're going to be talking about A Quart of Sugar and Spice by Rebecca F. Kenney. And, a couple weeks ago, I was thinking to myself, like, I should do something like, Christmassy and holiday themed because, maybe some people will enjoy that. I'm not really a big Christmas guy myself, but I was like, get out of my comfort zone. Try something new, right? So I Googled Christmas fantasy novels, and this was one of the ones that popped up. I was like, oh, that's a funny title. This is going to be like cute shit and shenanigans. It wasn't. This shit doesn't even shenan once. Never mind shenan again. So yeah, I read it, and now I need to process with all of y'all. So yeah, I guess I don't know. Get cozy. I got a hot drink. It's a candy cane mocha from a local shop. I say get cozy, but I'm well aware that I'm probably the type of YouTuber that you put on and then do other stuff, like almost like a podcast. So if you turn on this video so that you could do dishes or clean your room or something, don't stop doing that, Like, you get the stuff that you need to do done. And hey, if you did hit play on this video so that you could get something done today, I believe in you. You're going to do a great job. And hey, you're out here doing your best, and that's all anyone can ask. And you're a very special person, and you don't get enough love. That's what we do on this channel: insanely chill book reviews and mundane affirmations. Before I get into this review and talk about this book like at all, I gotta tell you. So I posted a picture of this book in the private Discord server for my patrons, and a couple of my patrons were like, oh, that looks hilarious, or oh, that sounds fun. And then they went to add it to their TBRs and were like, ooh, did you see all the trigger warnings? And I hadn't yet, because I was just like, can you believe that this shit exists? I don't even know if I decided to read it yet. So then I went and looked up this book's trigger warnings on Storygraph, and there's quite a few. So if you like stop this video at the spoiler free part and then decide to go read it, just please check the trigger warnings first, because this book is pretty, because this book is definitely a dark romantasy, and there's some dark shit. So yeah, A Quart of Sugar and Spice is like a dark romantasy, kind of smutty retelling of the Nutcracker. I do this review kind of like I did my Nightbane review, so I'm going to do a rapid fire 4Cs, and then I'm going to go through the notes that I took as I read through the book. So for those of you who don't know or don't remember, the 4Cs are character, conflict, context, and craft. So let's talk about character. There are basically like four main characters. Well, really there's two main characters and two love interests. They're sisters, Clara and Louisa. From the jump, I didn't know anything about this book, and I don't know anything about the Nutcracker. I've never seen it. That's not true. I saw like a ballet version once because my younger sister was in it, and she played one of the Rat King's soldiers, I think. But that was like 10 years ago, and I didn't understand what was going on because it's a ballet. No one was talking. And then I was trying to keep an eye out for my little sister so I could be like, oh, you were great. Anyways, yeah, two main characters, sisters, Clara and Louisa. From the jump, like, I thought that the book was going to be just about Clara, and I liked Clara enough. I was like, okay, yeah, like, I get it. You're kind of uptight, kind of reserved, scared, whatever. That's cool. And at the beginning, Clara felt very, like, almost like a typical character. I don't know how to explain it other than she just, like, I think maybe because she sees herself very plain and uninteresting and kind of ordinary. That was my perception of her. And I was like, but obviously, like, we're about to deal with something like magical, so you're gonna change as the book goes on, and so I'm cool with starting off here. A cool detail about Clara is that she's a visual artist, and she loves beauty, and her like approach to art is super different from like mine. Like, I'm an artist too, but I appreciated the author taking the time to kind of not just be like, oh, I am an artist and that's that, but also go into why she loves art and why she loves the creative process and what that does for her mental health and stuff like that. So I was like, that's a cool detail. I really like the arc that she goes on, and to some degree, there's some parts that I was like, oh, okay. I would say that I really enjoyed Clara's character and her sort of like development and kind of claiming some of the more or less acceptable parts of herself. Meaning, I think she's trying to be proper and sort of learn how to survive in I don't even remember what time period this story takes place in, but like the kind of old England vibes, like late 1800s or something. So she's learned how to navigate that world by being proper and being well behaved and stuff like that. And we see her kind of lose that shit and kind of, embrace her own darker side as well as her own courageous side. And I don't want to get too much into it because we're doing spoiler free things, but just I thought it was an interesting arc that she went on, and she's definitely a completely different person, or a fairly different person by the end of the book, and I like the ending that she had. Her sister Louisa, on the other hand, I did not like at all from the jump. I didn't like her throughout the book. Like, I just don't like this character. As far as I'm concerned, she's a pretty shitty sister, and she's definitely, I don't know how to say this. She does some pretty bad stuff, and it is kind of just pushed past in the book, which leads me to believe that the author maybe doesn't see it as bad, but I didn't care for it. I'm not going to say, like, oh, this isn't a good character or a well-written character because, like, their morals don't perfectly line up with me. That's not what I'm really saying. It's just that, like, I didn't like this character partially because, like, she's very self-centered for most of the book, and she does some things that were, like, pretty terrible, I would say. Louisa definitely goes through some personal growth and becomes less selfish as the book continues, and she learns that, kind of to be less selfish, and she learns that she's kind of a shitty sister and that she's been really focused on her own feelings throughout this whole situation, even though she kind of has it the easiest of the four sort of main characters we deal with. She definitely has like the kind of like an opposing arc to her sister, but it brings them closer together. Like, they start out the book very different from each other, and by the end I'd say they're closer to the middle and closer to each other, and that was sweet to see. Like, we get some sweet sister moments between these two characters, and I did enjoy reading that stuff. But whenever it was like just Louisa's narration or whatever, it was like, ugh. But also I think that she was like exactly who she was supposed to be. I think that maybe she embodies like the horny bisexual trope a little too much. And for a lot of the reading, I thought that was kind of Louisa's only character trait. But we do dive deeper with her later on, and so maybe that's part of the growth. But it was kind of annoying at first. I won't lie to you. The Nutcracker himself is another character. We don't get a lot of him. We do see that he's very stoic and very prideful and very like judgmental of humans in the beginning because he's Fae. We learn that a lot of that is like based in insecurity and love for his home. And so, we don't get much, but what we do get as far as like diving deeper with him, I did enjoy, and I thought he was a pretty likable character. As he and Louisa kind of get together, I don't think that's much of a spoiler. But as he and Louisa kind of get closer and get together and sort of do sort of not enemies to lovers, but I don't fucking like you to I fucking love you trajectory, it's a little, I don't know. I don't know if this is the kind of romance that's like my jam. I think I like cuter, sweeter romances than this, but like some things that he said were a little cringy to me, that's all. And the fourth character, I'll talk about him a little bit. He is the Sugar Plum Fairy. He is the cousin to the Nutcracker. He's sort of like, I don't want to say he's the funny one because that's not entirely accurate, but I guess he is. But then again, no, he is the funny one. I can't think of a character that I could compare him to. I can't be like, oh, he's the Joey, he's the Sokka, he's the Bolin, because he is very much like his own character, and he is his own, like, I've never encountered a character who embodied all these different things, but yeah, he's an entertaining character. I don't think that he really I don't think he really lets his walls down entirely throughout the book, so it's like we don't really get to know him much. I don't know if we necessarily need to, because it's more about the sisters and the Nutcracker than it is about him. He does have a romance with Clara, and so seeing them get closer was at one point pretty disturbing, and other points kind of sweet, and how he kind of gives Clara permission to be her truest self is very nice. I think. I don't know if I can say that. We all want to be seen and appreciated for who we truly are, sure. And also, It was wild. It was a lot. It was a lot. Moving on to conflict, there's a lot in this book. You know, conflict is the thing that keeps the plot moving, and this plot moves. I don't think that I would say it's like fast paced, but it really is like fast medium. Yeah, fast medium. You know, like on a scale of slow to fast, it's like like if 0 is the slowest a story can go, and 10 is like that, then I'd give it like a 7. I was definitely like never bored like at all. I don't particularly like, yeah, I was never bored like at all. Like at all. I should probably start including this in my reviews, but you know, there are some books that I've read where I really have to like power through in order to read within the time frame that I've given myself to finish it in time to review it and that kind of thing. And I do that kind of based on how many work days it's going to take. But sometimes I won't even be able to like listen to the whole book or read the whole book at work for that whole work day. I have to stop because I need to engage in other content. Like Iron Flame, I thought I could do in like 3 work days, but it ended up taking the whole work week because I had to stop and like listen to music or listen to episodes of the Josh Johnson Show. If you're looking for a funny podcast, it's just 2 dudes exchanging very wacky, silly stories. Definitely check out the Josh Johnson Show. That's not a plug. They didn't ask me to say that. I just really appreciate what they do. This one I was able to like just dive in, power through, and I crushed it in like 2.5 days. So I was definitely like never bored, and even though this is definitely outside of my genre and definitely not something that I would choose to read if not for like, I guess the bit of this channel, I was engaged in the content, and at some points I really did care to see what was going to happen next. You know, like, yeah, there were definitely times where I could predict what was going to happen, and other times where I was like, oh, okay, yes, we're doing that now. I don't want to get too much into like what actually happens, but I will say, yeah, the conflict, there's a lot, you know, there's a lot of internal conflict where both sisters are kind of like re-examining and self-reflecting as they're thrown into this like other world and this off the walls, bonkers, dangerous, scary situation they find themselves in. And yeah, I think that it was, yeah, I was definitely engaged and I was definitely like interested, which can't be said about every book that's kind of, I guess, in this realm of literature that I've read. Moving on to context, that's like world building and politics and that kind of a thing. We don't get too much politics as far as like, so there's like the real world, which I guess is like late 1800s England, I think. The narrator spoken in English accent the whole time, so I'm assuming that's where the girls are from originally. But yeah, there's that, and then there's the world of fairy. I have no, like, I've never read a fae story before. I've never read anything with like sexy fairies in it before. Oh, by the way, the fairies are sexy. I don't think that's a spoiler, but that's kind of a thing. But, you know, like, I think I'd had sort of a preconceived notion of what the Nutcracker magic world would kind of look like. I think I'd seen, like, a trailer for a Nutcracker movie that came out a couple years ago or something. So I had, like, a vague understanding. But, yeah, like, we don't get a ton of politics and how the world of fairy works, but there are there are politics involved. Again, this is a bit of a spoiler, but not really. The Nutcracker is the prince and soon-to-be king of the Court of Delight in the world of fairy. So, you know, like, there are politics involved here, and there is like a war going on and stuff like that. And all of that was very easy to understand and easy to follow. I didn't think it was convoluted. It was very concise, and nothing made me go like, wait, what? Why? You know, the way magic works, it's not like super, you know, in depth and well explained or anything like that, but the magic is cool. The magic is interesting, you know. There's many different species of fae and other sort of creatures that are involved, and those were all really interesting. The Rat King is terrifying. I was disgusted. I don't ever want to see this character brought to life. Nah. Basically what I'm saying is I think the world was well built. Nothing super groundbreaking or like mind-blowing, but also everything made sense and everything. Like nothing made me go like, hey, wait, what? There was just enough explanation of how magic and spells worked that it, like you can be like, it's magic, but also, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I wouldn't say the world building. Oh my God, A Quart of Sugar and Spice, the world building. That's what you read it for. And I bet you're wondering, but D, if you're not reading this book for the world building, what are you reading it for? I imagine most people read it for the sexy fairies and the smut. I imagine most people are reading it because they want to read about sex scenes with the sugar plum fairy and his different flavors of, I straight up don't know what term I can use that's not going to get this video demonetized. Baby gravy? And hey, if you thought that was gross, welcome to my world. Now you know my pain. Fuck, what's the last C? Oh, craft. Yeah, you know what? You know what? I was ready for this book to be like really bad. I definitely judged this book by its cover, and I was expecting it to be like very poorly written or something like that, and it wasn't. I personally, I don't think that this is the kind of writing that makes me go like, ooh, this is stunning. Because I think when I get really like, ooh, what writing? It's usually, like I've talked about before, like Aaron Morgenstern, V.E. Schwab, Alex E. Harrow would be like another on that list, where things kind of lean sort of gothic and they're atmospheric, but there weren't a lot of lines. It was like, oh, that's bad. Like she ran like she was running from something. Or the sun was a yoki thing. During some of the smuttier times, there's definitely like words being used that I don't like to hear or read in books. You know what I'm saying? Like I hate the word cock like in general, but I really don't like it in books. But I think people just use it in smut a lot. I'm not like a prude or anything like that, but I think it's just like I get really caught up in like the poetry of some books, especially in something like fantasy, where a lot of people try to read or write poetic, so it's like you got these beautiful sort of romantic tension being built, and then they say like fuck or cock or pussy, and then I'm just like, it takes me out of it for a second. But I think I said this in my Iron Flame review that I hadn't like read good smut. I think this is good smut. It's definitely better than Iron Flame or Fourth Wing. Like, the spice is spicing, you know what I'm saying? Like, there was a scene or two where I was like, okay, woo, shouldn't be doing this at work. And I hate talking about my day job on the internet because I hate my day job and it makes me ashamed. But if you can imagine me just sitting on an excavator listening to like a woman just getting absolutely railed by a fairy while I'm just going like, okay. So yeah, I think it was well written, and I don't know if Rebecca F. Kenney wrote this book or the whole series, don't worry, there's a series, as a bit, but executed it in earnest for the bit, or if this was genuinely something that she wanted to do. But it's like, I went in thinking like, ugh, here we go. Like, I went in thinking this was going to be like a gag, like, it's going to be bad, it's going to be poorly written, and it's not. I don't remember if I said this in the Discord or who I said it to, but I said it's basically like the Hobbs and Shaw of dark romance fantasy. And what I mean is, Hobbs and Shaw isn't a good movie in the sense it's not like masterful cinema, but that movie knows what it's doing, and it does what it's doing very well. That movie feels longer than it actually is because it goes all over the place. It's balls to the wall action. There's explosions and muscular men punching things. There's Idris Elba, which, by the way, you want me to go to a movie, put Idris Elba in it. My biggest complaint about The Boy and the Heron? No Idris Elba. So it does all these things. It's definitely like a blockbuster movie. The director knows action and executes everything really well. And I would say the same sort of thing about this book, where it's like Rebecca F. Kenney knows what she's doing, knows what she's writing, and wrote it well, which is like super strange, but it was kind of good. There were definitely parts of the book where I was disturbed to my core and deeply upset. But I was still like, but why is this good? And why can't I look away? It's like almost grotesque. I said I was going to rapid fire through the 4 C's, and I don't think I was that rapid. All right, so now I'm going to get into the spoiler part of the video where I kind of go through my notes and share my thoughts. I'm going to tell you right now that I did my best to keep track of like which chapters were which, but sometimes there were a couple chapters where like nothing is going on here that's worth noting. I mean, I think because of that I lost track, so I'm gonna do my best here, but yeah, sorry. Okay, so book starts off, Clara and her sister Louisa are sent to live with their godfather Drosselmeyer, after their dad dies. He's blocked their inheritance until they either turn 30 or get married, and I guess that was like a contract of his will or something like that. And I was like, that's fucking weird. And that was part of what confused me about like what year this was supposed to be, because like my brain was like, didn't back in the day, if you were 30 and unmarried, weren't you like old? Because I thought like back in the day, women were married off when they were like, I don't know, like 15 or something. But then again, but also I failed history class, but also I wasn't a good student in history class. I wasn't a good student in any class except for art. So they're like rocking up to the house, and then Louisa's like, I wonder what kind of person Uncle Drosselmeyer is. And she's like, oh, I wonder if I can seduce him. I was like, oh, so this is the vibe. Cool. And Claire's like, bro, what are you saying, man? He's supposed to be our uncle or some shit. He's like our dad's best friend. That's gross. And then Drosselmeyer like walks in on them having this conversation, like, seduce me, a very sitcom-y, and he seems chill, but automatically I was like, yeah, this dude's shady as fuck. And before anyone's like, yeah, of course he's shady, he's Drosselmeyer, I don't know the Nutcracker. I don't know things. Stop telling me what Raylo is. I know now. My life sucks now. I'm joking. It sucked before. So they get into the house. I think Drosselmeyer takes her luggage or whatever, and then they just kind of like wander around the house a little bit. He's like, yeah, like, you know, this is your home. Don't go on the third floor. That's my workshop. That's my study. Don't go up there, but everywhere else is fair game. Clara goes exploring, and she finds this secret room with a bunch of like weird sculptures, and she gets startled by like a wooden robot that they call an automaton. Drosselmeyer's like, oh, it's made of clockwork, but Claire's like, I don't see any gears like on this thing, or like a thing in its back, like a wind-up toy or anything. The next chapter, we switch to Louisa's narration, and she wants to check out the room that Clara found, because like she and Clara talk a lot. Like I said in the spoiler bit, they're kind of like opposite personalities, and they're opposite like, and they kind of like coped with their life with their dad in opposite ways, and kind of learned different ways to survive in a patriarchal society. And they have like different sort of values or whatever, but they are like close as far as sisters go. I still think that Louise is a pretty shitty sister, and she does a lot of like shutting down. Of course, she puts Clara down a lot, but you know, they work close, so they tell each other everything. Louisa thinks about how she could seduce Drosselmeyer, her new guardian, who she's told to call uncle. Ew. And lists off all the people that she seduced and fucked. My note here is definitely the horny, depraved, bisexual stereotype. And, like, I don't love that. I don't like that stereotype, especially in literature. I got, like, a bunch of friends who are bisexual, and they just don't act this way. This is just not who they are, you know what I'm saying? It's not realistic, and I think it's, like, low-key biphobic, or at the very least, it reinforces biphobia, and I don't want to see that in media. I don't want to see that in life. They go to Drosselmeyer's showroom. They're not supposed to, but they do because they're bad. And they see a Nutcracker. And then my note is, I assume the Nutcracker, and Louisa breaks him. So she drops him, and like a shard of him comes off of his arm or something. And then Louisa wants to fix the Nutcracker because she feels really bad about breaking him. And I think also is afraid of getting caught. So she goes back with some glue, and I think she cuts her finger. I kind of missed some of this, or I don't know. Maybe something happened when I was reading or listening. But yeah, so I think she like pricks her finger, and some blood gets onto the wood shard that she's like trying to stick in there, and then sticks it on anyway. And then the Nutcracker starts to vibrate. And then this line comes up, and this isn't the full line, but this was so funny to me because, again, I still wasn't sure what the vibe of the book was because I didn't read any premise. I was like, I'm going in knowing nothing because that's going to give me the best reaction, I guess. Zero expectations, and then you just like everything is a surprise. So I think the Nutcracker's basically coming to life, and she's like going like, oh, fuck. And then she says, my naughty tongue is courtesy of Clara's math tutor. He taught me all kinds of words I could say when I came on his dick. And then I felt so conflicted because on one hand, I'm like, okay, get it, girl. And the other part of me was just taken by surprise because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And then the Nutcracker kind of comes to life. So he like grows and he starts being able to move and talk a little bit. He still kind of looks like a wooden doll. And then he and Louisa start fighting immediately. So I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. The immediate arguing and stuff like that is like, okay, they're going to end up together. Saw that coming. I did think maybe there was going to be a triangle or a triad sort of situation going on. But then I kept reading. In chapter 3, Louisa wakes up Clara and introduces her to the Nutcracker, who reveals that he's the Fey Prince, and Drosselmeyer is a sorcerer who hunts and curses fairies. So like he catches fairies, uses a spell to turn them into the wooden robot automaton things or little statues or whatever. So they need to go through a magic portal to the land of fairy or fairyland to dip the prince in the unending pool so that he can take his place as ruler of the court of delight. Clara's like, oh yeah, I've read Fey porn before, which, you know, that's always the right response. Can you imagine like one of your friends is really going through it? You know, they're like laying their soul bare about all the trials and tribulations. Their marriage is falling apart. They lost their job or whatever. And then your response is just like, oh yeah, I've read fairy porn. Drosselmeyer throws a dinner and the guests come to like see his inventions. And some guys pick up the Nutcracker. And then some guy like picks up the Nutcracker and says to his buddy, think we could convince Drosselmeyer to convert this into a doll that sucks cock? And again, I was like, oh, okay. And honestly, at that point, I'm like, that's fucking sad, dog, because I've never looked at a Nutcracker and thought, yeah, blowjobs. Like, think of a Nutcracker, right? You don't want none of you inside of that thing, right? Because you're a normal person. Okay, and then I think we're at chapter 4. Drosselmeyer somehow, like, just kind of instinctively knows that the girls know. And they, you know, he hasn't done anything yet, but he's like, I'm on to you with his eyes. And then they need to get into a secret room with an iron lock, because that's where the portal is. The Nutcracker is nice to Clara, and Louisa hates that. And that's why I kind of thought there was going to be some sort of like love triangle triad thing, because the Nutcracker is being very polite to Clara, and Louisa's already jealous. And I'm like, you don't need, like, relax. They find a weapons vault and go through the portal. Chapter 5, they are in the land of fairy now. And the Nutcracker might be playing both sisters a little. That was my note. Drosselmeyer follows them through the portal. He's like, stop, you don't know what you're doing. Which is very typical. Family friend turns out to be the villain behavior. I'm like, come on, dog. Like, spice it up a little bit. Say something different. The trio get attacked by some of the Rat King's soldiers, like right off the bat, because I guess the Rat King is like taking over the Court of Delight's territory. I think the Court of Delight and the good fairies are called Seelie, and the Rat King's people are called Unseelie. But anyway, so, you know, they walk up, and I'm like, hell yeah, anthropomorphic rat man, about to fuck shit up, let's go. And then I think Louisa throws an anti-Fey grenade at the rat man, and it blows, like, one of their, like, faces off, and it turns out that they're just wearing rat heads. So all the Unseelie soldiers are furries, and I guess that's either dope or weird depending on how you feel about furries. I was mainly disappointed because I was like, yeah, these guys are gonna be scary as hell. Little did I know. And I think Drosselmeyer just sees that the soldiers are coming. He's like, oh shit. And he just like dips back through the portal and closes it. So then Louisa and Clara are like, whoa, that dude who's supposed to be our caretaker just ditched us in this other world where we're about to get killed by giant rat people. That's a dick move. Chapter 6, they fight the furries, and one of them says to Louisa, surrender and I promise to fuck you before I kill you. Like, and I understand that line is probably meant to make the Unseelie Fae seem menacing and boorish and gross, but I just couldn't help but think, what is going through your mind that you think that that's something someone's going to be like, okay, deal. You know what I'm saying? And then that soldier attempts to take advantage of Louisa, like in the middle of the battle, and Clara just fucking kills him. And then chapter 7, we switch to Clara's narration, and she's kind of self-reflecting on having just killed a soldier. And she's like, yo, I kind of like killing. That was dope. I was like, okay, a little inner darkness. All right, little corruption arc. Now you're speaking my language. Louisa offers the Nutcracker, the Fey Prince, blood, because basically he's under this curse, but human blood weakens the curse. And so then she's like, yo, drink me, daddy. And he's like, no. But then he starts sipping her like a Merlot. And you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if that whole plot point of like he got to drink her blood in order to be able to move and not be made of wood was like just set up for, I guess, like a blood play kink. I'm not entirely sure because I don't know anything about that kink. But I'm just thinking about it now. I'm like, oh, that's got to be like a thing, right? Or maybe it was just like, hey, you know, I'm going to feed two birds with one scone, fae and vampire porn. Anyways, Clara's like, yo, that's weird as fuck. I don't want to watch this. And goes to, I guess, clean off in a river nearby or get some water or something like that. She gets attacked by like a giant rat bear monster. And then she's saved by a fairy dressed in candy who speaks in like flavors and tastes. And I don't mean like he only says spicy, savory, or anything like that. I just mean like he uses a lot of like, you smell delicious and hey, sweetness, that kind of stuff. Which I guess kind of is just him going spicy. And then he's like, yo, I saved your life. You owe me. And Clara's like, yo, I'll paint you. I'm an artist. And he's like, cool. Chapter 8, we switch narration again. Louisa's getting slurped down and she's getting into it. And then I guess monsters are just like on the loose right now, but they see a giant mole rat with tentacles for a mouth, which was an unpleasant thing to hear about at 11:30 in the morning. It eats a bird and Louisa like freaks out and she's like really tempted to scream, so the Nutcracker starts making out with her to shut her up. And then Clara and this new fairy like reappear and they fight the mole rat thing, and then the new fairy's like, yo, what's up, cousin? Now we have this crew of 4. Yay. In the next chapter, chapter 10, Louisa's angry because the Nutcracker's like, yeah, I'm not into you. And she's like, everybody's into me. Everybody wants to fuck me. How dare you? And then the Fey Prince is like, I was turned into a Nutcracker by a crazed sorcerer. My kingdom, my homeland is in danger. My friends and family are probably dead. I got bigger problems than you right now. Which is incredibly reasonable. And this may be the point where I was like, no, I hate Louisa. Yeah, you can be hurt by the rejection, but like, yeah, he's got other shit going on right now. I don't know how much I can talk about stuff on this channel, but then chapter 11, Clara takes a bath. Like, you know, they fought this giant mole rat creature. They were chased by Rat King soldiers. So they go back to the Sugar Plum Fairy, that the new fairy's house. He has a house kind of in neutral ground because he's Seelie, like, you know, he's the prince's cousin, but I think he's an outcast in the Court of Delight. But he's also not unseelie, so you know he's neutral ground. But he is going to help his cousin because he believes in like balance and order and all that shit. And also, I think he wants to fuck Clara. And by I think, he absolutely wants to fuck Clara. So Clara takes a bath in this magical bathtub, and she's getting out. And then the Sugar Plum Fairy, I think he's like bringing her medicine or a healing spell or a towel or something. Because, you know, like he's horny. He comes on to her a lot, but he is very respectful of her like boundaries, I think, you know, and he seems like kind of a gentleman in some ways. Anyway, he finger bangs her, but he's also kind of like behind her and making her watch herself, I guess, enjoy the process until it's finished. And I was like, okay, all right, okay, all right, okay. You know, sometimes you really got to stop and think about the life choices that you made, you know? So after Clara and the Sugar Plum Fairy are like done with that exchange, he tells her his real name, which is Phineas. I think in the world of Fae, and I don't know if this is like general Fae lore or if it's just for this book, because again, I don't know fuck about the Fae. Yo, I don't know shit about fairies, dog. Apparently they don't give away their names, you know, it's like private information, or like they only give their names to people that they trust. So that was like a thing. And then shortly after, we learned that the Nutcracker's name is Lear. So Louisa, Phineas, and Lear go to a Fae tavern to recruit a group of Fae mercenaries. I think Clara's staying back at the Sugar Plum Fairy's house to paint him something. I don't think him, but she's painting him something. So while the group that went to the tavern is like, you know, negotiating, like, yo, like, let's save the kingdom. Lear starts turning back into wood, so Louisa and him go off to the side, and then she's like, yo, bite my neck, dog. And so he starts drinking her Edward Cullen styles, and Louisa tries to jerk him off in his pants while he's drinking her blood, because I guess he's kind of, turned on by this. And then Lear is like, yo, get off me. I only sleep with people that I care about, and that'll never be you. Brutal rejection. And this is what I was talking about before when I said that I don't like Louisa's character, and due in part to the fact that she does some pretty terrible things. Consent exists, you know what I'm saying? And Louisa kind of disregards that a lot. And then there's part of me that thinks that the author does this, but kind of doesn't condemn it because Louise is a woman. And so I took issue with that aspect of the book, because it's very clear that the book condemns rape when the assaulters are men, which is good. That's very good. I think that's a good stance to have. But then quite a few times Louisa just grabs this dude. And to me, that's also not okay. You know what I'm saying? Chapters 13 and 14, Clara bangs the Sugar Plum Fairy. My note is, I don't know much about sex scenes, but I think this was pretty good, question mark. And Louisa's so frustrated with being rejected by Lear a bunch of times that she, takes care of herself. And then Lear accidentally walks in and then just kind of watches her do it. And then Phineas's house gets attacked by evil soldiers. So now they're on the run. Chapter 15 and 16, they travel, yada, yada. Chapter 17, Clara and the Sugar Plum Fairy. No, wait, sorry. My note says the Sugar Plum Daddy. Hey, yo, what's up, Sugar Plum Daddy? That's funny. I like that. Good for me, past me. They do CNC. I don't really know anything about CNC. I've never done it. There was a lot of time spent leading up to this scene where Phineas is making sure that Clara's okay with this. They set up a safe word. Even we're experiencing this through Clara's point of view, and even in Phineas kind of playing up the kind of bad guy that he is and trying to be scary for the fantasy. She still kind of sees his actions as being compassionate, because he's clearly holding back from actually being truly dangerous, I guess. I don't really know how to describe it, because I don't have experience or knowledge in this field, but I did appreciate that there was time taken to show that consent was a big part of this fantasy, because Clara ends up being secretly into some pretty weird stuff. Hence the oh yeah, I've read fairy porn before and earlier in the book. And I don't think I mentioned this before, but Phineas is he's banged everybody. That's kind of part of his character. He's very flamboyant and charming, and he's banged everybody. And part of that is that I don't know how to explain this. So every time he finishes, it tastes different every time, and it's always delicious. There, I said it. You happy now? And if you go and look at some of the reviews on this book, people talk about that fact it's a fun little detail. Guess what? It's kind of a plot point. It's weird. It's very weird. But this made this dude very popular with all types, all genders, all species. And yeah. So he's kind of down for whatever. He got so freaky that he got burned out from being a freak, and he wants true love and romance and all this. And so when Clara's yo, I think she accidentally blurts out that she's into something kind of dark. And so they agree to do this. And yeah, it was pretty spicy, pretty steamy. This was not for me, at all. This isn't something that I want to mess around with or am interested in. But I still think it was written well. This has really changed my life, and not in a good way. When Clara and the Sugar Plum Fairy get back, Clara and Louisa start to argue, because Louisa kind of keeps doing this thing where she's negging her sister or twisting her sister's feelings so that she feels shitty, because Louisa's angry that she doesn't get to bang a sexy fairy. So she's like trying to dampen the experience. I'm like, oh, you don't really love him, or he doesn't really care about you. He's just using you, yada, yada, yada. And I was just like, you're an asshole, And then Clara's like, yo, you an asshole. And then Clara gets kidnapped by like a plant-based fairy with super speed. And then the group realizes that Clara's been kidnapped, and the Sugar Plum Fairy is like, yo, I'm gonna go get her. Clara's taken to the Rat King's court, and this dude is an actual rat. And also, he has many rats just embedded in his body. So they're like stuck to him and trying to squirm away, but they cannot. That's disgusting. That's horrifying. I did not appreciate this at all. And this is the part where I don't know like what happened, but I think a couple things were just like kind of all happening at once. So I stopped writing down chapter numbers. So I think this is around chapter 21, but the Sugar Plum Fairy kind of infiltrates the Rat King's court and is like, yo, what's up? And they're like, hey, you one of them Sealy motherfuckers. He's like, yeah, but I'm like on everybody's side. I'm here for a good time, not a long time, baby. Let me entertain you with my magic tricks. I think everyone thinks that he just does like flashy illusions and can create like tasty food, or I don't know what they think he can do, because it's clear that they don't think he can do like combat magic, but dude does a lot of combat magic. I don't know if maybe he keeps that on the down low so that nobody like catches on to how threatening he actually is. I don't know. Cool character detail though. I like that. Yeah, so there's supposed to be an orgy. The Rat King has a lot of captured concubines. Like a harem of prisoners, I guess. So they're gonna have an orgy and everybody's fucking each other. And the Sugar Plum Fairy just takes Clara and is just kind of like, all right, let's just like power through this party, wait for everyone to fall asleep, and then dip. And then I don't remember the context, but I know this is Louisa's line, and this might be the worst line in the whole book. And this one, I was like, this is so stupid. But it's the only line, so I was like, it's still fine. But Louisa says, I believe my heart is wet for him. I get the sentiment. What? I think after a little bit more traveling, Louisa and the Nutcracker, Prince Lear, confess that they actually love each other. And then they bang. And Lear, the Nutcracker, he was talking about, like, from the moment he, like, encountered Louisa, he's known that he's like destined to be with her because of her scent. Like, her scent is his scent. Like, she belongs to him, and sex with this like perfect person, this soulmate, this meant to be type person is the best sex you're ever gonna have. And that's just monogamy propaganda. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But then they have this scene and Louisa's like, yeah, that was the best I've ever had. I'm done being a hoe. I'm just a hoe for you, boo. And this is all happening at a camp near the unending pool. That's like the Sealy soldiers have been protecting it, waiting for the prince because the Rat King wants. I think the unending pool is like the source of all magic in this realm or something like that. I missed that detail because I was very distracted by, all the fucking. Then the Rat King soldiers attack, and Louisa and the Nutcracker jump on horses and make their way to the unending pool because they gotta like wrap this shit up. The Sugar Plum Fairy and Clara try to escape the Rat King's court. They're stopped by a spider fae who originally had vouched for Phineas. I was about to call him Phoenix, and then went back and talked to the Rat King. He was like, actually, I think this dude's like, up to something, and we should like capture him because, he shoots out different flavors. So then Phineas kills that spider fae, and eventually they end up getting caught by the Rat King, who can wield shadow magic with a special scepter. And then we go back to Louisa and Lear. They're being chased, and then he turns back into a Nutcracker because it's been such a long time since he's consumed Louisa's blood. But then she grabs the Nutcracker and throws that into the unending pool. And then he comes out as a giant. Then he turns into a dragon. And then he kills everybody. And I was like, all right, that's crazy. When I thought he was just going to come out and like wave a sword or something like that. And at this point, I'm just like, yeah, just along for the ride. You know what I mean? And then we're back with Clara and the Sugar Plum Fairy. they're being held in like this tiny dark cell, and then they're brought out for another, like, I think they've been held for like a couple days or something like that. And then the Rat King's like, oh, we're gonna have a feast, and he has them both chained up, and he's basically like, I'm gonna bang y'all to death. But then they all get saved because Drosselmeyer comes back, and he turns every one of the Fae in the Rat King's court into little toys or whatever. And then Clara and Drosselmeyer have like a big argument. I think it's revealed that their dad, Clara and Louisa's dad, also used to hunt the Fae. And Drosselmeyer like thinks that all Fae are evil. And that's been a big theme throughout the book, is that the Fae think all humans are corrupt, and Drosselmeyer thinks that all Fae are evil. And like, you can't judge everyone based on the actions of a few. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, it's like almost like a weak allegory for racism or something like that. And at that point, I was almost like, okay, I see what you're going for, and I appreciate it, but also, this is clearly very smut. Like, what are you doing talking about racism? Let's focus here, okay? Let's talk more about the woman with antlers and 3 boobs. That was interesting. I'm kidding. Relax. I think she had 4. Then Clara and him are arguing, and she wants like all the Seelie Fae, the good Fae, to be turned back and be set free. And basically, I think she ends up convincing him to let all the Fae that he's captured go, in exchange for the Rat King's shadow magic scepter or whatever. And Drosselmeyer was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And then I think Lear and Louisa show up and kind of cement this deal with Drosselmeyer. So, you know, Lear kind of forgives him, but also is like, if I ever see you in Fae again, I will kill you. And I was like, that's fair. And then the book, kind of wraps up, fairy tale, happy ending sort of thing. Lear becomes the king of the Court of Delight. The Rat King's troops are pushed back into their proper territory. Louisa becomes the queen of the Court of Delight, and Clara and Phineas, they get married or are bonded forever or whatever, and they open up like a spell work and sweets shop, because Phineas is good at making candy and also good at making spells. And there's like an art studio in there for Clara. And I thought that was really sweet. And it was kind of strange how sweet I thought that was. And that's not a candy pun. I just mean like it was like a sweet ending for Clara and Phineas, and like a ending for Louisa and Lear. So yeah, that's the end of A Court of Sugar and Spice by Rebecca F. Kenney. I straight up don't know how to feel. So, you know, at the end of my reviews, I don't really do number ratings because I feel like that lacks nuance or whatever, and it doesn't really go in depth or whatever. I guess maybe I should start doing number ratings. I ask and answer 3 questions. Was it good? Did I enjoy it? And would I recommend it? Which is more like, who would I recommend it to or something like that. So was it good? I think it was. Like I said before, I think that Rebecca F. Kenney knew exactly what she was writing, but wrote it really well. And wrote it like it's exactly what it's supposed to be. And I don't think that it really failed at that. You know what I'm saying? It's the Hobbs and Shaw of dark romantasy. Did I enjoy it? Like, I think I enjoyed maybe like 35% of it. Like, where I'm actually kind of having fun, or actually kind of into the action or something like that. Or actually kind of into, you know, Clara and Phineas falling in love, and Phineas accepting Clara for her darker side, and Clara seeing the good and the like the deeper side of Phineas. I thought that was sweet. But those moments were kind of few and far between where I'm genuinely having fun, and the rest of them I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't think I can say I enjoyed it, but I also acknowledge, but this is still like a good. Like, I'm not a chef, but I often use this analogy of like, chefs may not like all the dishes that they make at a restaurant, or may not like certain foods, but they know what those things are supposed to taste like. And I'm not saying I'm like a literary chef. I'm just saying that, like, given the context and given everything else, I think that this is good. It's just not my taste. Final question, would I recommend it? I don't know who I would recommend it to. I guess, like, I just made a new friend who is like a sexual health and consent educator, who seems to be who's like into kink and stuff like that. And I I think that they would enjoy. And even when I was like kind of telling them about this YouTube video that I was going to film, they were kind of intrigued. And I think if you're into kink and you're into like, and you have a bit of a sense of humor of like, wouldn't it be silly if I read a book about the Nutcracker banging a lady? Then like, then maybe check this out. There are 2 other books in this series. And the next one's kind of like Alice in Wonderland. And then the next one after that, I think, is like Wizard of Oz or whatever. And I might review those for my Patreon. Speaking of my Patreon, if you want exclusive access to content you won't find anywhere else, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon. You get an extra rant review video a month. We're doing like a live stream, live podcast, live comedy show type of thing once a month as well. That's a good time. And you also gain access to my private Discord server, the Don't Fret Club Discord server, where we're talking about writing and books. And we just had like a long argument about chicken and waffles. I was shocked and appalled to find out that one of my patrons doesn't like chicken and waffles. And that was a tough one, you know? That was a hard day, but it's been a lot of fun, and that's probably my favorite part of, starting to do YouTube. So yeah, if any of that sounds interesting or exciting to you, definitely consider subscribing to my Patreon. I guess I might as well just finish the pitch. If Patreon's not really a thing, but you still want more content from me, make sure you consider subscribing to my second channel, Don't Fret 64, where I'm talking about anime and manga. Right now I'm reacting to Haikyuu, and I want to start reviewing manga and kind of talking about stuff that's going on in the manga world. Without being like melodramatic, life just keeps happening to me, and so that might just be like a New Year's resolution. Get 4 videos out per week between 2 channels. And I have a Ko-Fi page. I have a goal on my page to get money to get more cameras so that I can kind of do other stuff and kind of expand what I can do. Because right now I only have 1 camera, and it's not suited for like vlogging or doing more sketch comedy type stuff, because I want to do some more funny things. Not that I'm funny, but I want to try. And yeah, I think that's everything. So thank you so much for watching. And I mean it, like, I know that I've done this sort of like scripted goodbye or thank you for the last forever, because I was under the impression that you should do stuff like that. But I don't know how many times I talk about this. Maybe you're tired of hearing this, but like this, and this is probably not the book to attach this to, but I'm gonna say it anyway because it's on my mind. I have tried to do something creative my entire life. I am a musician, but people don't really like my music when I sing my songs, to the point where I like took down an album that I put out because I was so embarrassed by how bad it turned out to be. I've put out a couple chapbooks and done like a lot of like work in poetry, and people don't really like my poetry that much. I guess I'm just not very good. And so the fact that people seem to really just enjoy my YouTube videos and enjoy something that I make, I really do appreciate. Like, I feel like I should be kind of sadder about the realization that, oh, people don't like my art, but people seem to like my videos. So that's something, and I really appreciate that. I hope that I'm able to entertain you. I get a couple people saying that watching my videos feels like you're hanging out with a friend and you're talking about a book. And that's great. Like, I always wanted my art to help people feel a little bit less alone. But if I end up doing that through talking about books and stuff, I think that that's cool too. I've been doing this for like maybe 4 or 5 months now. And yeah, I'm a small channel. I'm not that big a deal. I just want to say thank you. And if you made it through all of that, holy shit, you get brownie points. I've done so much yap in this video. I have no idea how long it's going to turn out to be, but I've been recording for 2 hours. So thank you. Thank you so much for watching. My name is D. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out.